In the midst of heartbreak. As Stephen walked down the hall, he couldn't help but let his eyes begin to water. He was trying to hold it in, but he couldn't help but feel the raw pain that just transpired. So many thoughts were swirling through his head as he looked down at his feet on the old, scratched oak plank hallway. How, after 8 full months of giving everything to her, could she be so cold? How could she just end it so abruptly? How could the relationship seem so meaningless to her? As he pushed the exit door of her apartment building open, he didn't bother to open his umbrella. His mind was racing with thought, while his soul was crushed by emotion. He stumbled down the 6 concrete steps that led to the sidewalk, planted his feet, and turned down 3rd Avenue. He didn't look back at her 4th-story window like he always did. His eyes were dripping with tears now. With the rain hitting his face, it didn't seem to matter. He just kept putting one foot in front of the other, stomping through puddles, until he bumped into another lonely soul. As he did, Stephen didn't have the strength to catch his balance. He fell towards the concrete, hardly bracing for impact as his shoulders smashed against the ground. He grunted, then moaned as he rolled over onto his back. His mind finally woke up for a second, and he gathered enough strength to pull his soaked body under the canopy of the nearby donut shop. He placed his back against the brick building, then wiped his face. As Stephen took his hands off his face and put his head back against the wall, the image of her smiling face came clear as day to his mind. Another tear ran down his left cheek as that smile was burned into his memory forever. Just like the image of his mother's smiling face right before she walked out on him when he was 16. He took his cold, wet hand again and wiped away the tear. He hung his head and stared down at the small puddle he was sitting in. The dark street in the middle of the night wouldn't allow him to see his reflection. He stared for a moment, then let out a small broken word. Why? In that moment, he felt comfort. He felt as if the dad he never knew was kneeling down right beside him, wrapping his giant arms around him and weeping with him. Stephen couldn't explain it. He never knew his dad, but he felt comfort like he never had. In the moment of his greatest struggle, he felt like he was given greatest hug of his entire life. All Stephen could do was let the tears begin to pour out of his eyes onto the wet sidewalk he was sitting on. He put his hands around his legs, pulled them in close to his chest, put his head down in his lap, and let the feeling of the embrace of his father go on as long as he could.